Awaken your spirit, chosen one. This message isn't for the crowd, it's for the rare ones, the ones who feel too deeply, who see too clearly, who move through this world like a quiet storm, unsettling what was never built on truth. You've walked into rooms and felt the tension shift, not because you said anything, but because your spirit speaks volumes. You've been called intimidating, too much, too intense. But what they never told you is this: they don't fear you. They fear what's inside of you. You carry something ancient, something holy, a divine fire that cannot be tamed, bought, or borrowed. The reason people get uneasy around you, it's not your attitude, it's your energy. Your presence reveals what others have spent years trying to hide. Your discernment sees through smiles, masks, and rehearsed performances. You were never meant to blend in, you were sent to stand out. And that's why you're feared. You are the mirror that reflects what others deny. You are the awakening wrapped in human form. They've whispered about you behind closed doors. They've questioned why they feel so exposed around you, why their facades crack when you're near. But here's the twist. You don't even have to try. Your existence alone is disruptive to darkness. Your light blinds those who have only known shadows. And in a world where deception is currency, truth is dangerous. That's what you are, dangerous truth-walking. If the world truly understood who you were, if they saw the blueprint God hid inside your soul, the illusion would collapse. The entire game of control, fear, manipulation, it would all fall apart. Because your awakening triggers something in others. It reminds them of the power they buried. It shakes the false thrones they sit on. You, chosen one, are not the storm. They are. You are the calm center that exposes the chaos they've created. This is why your journey has felt so lonely. This is why you've been misunderstood, misread, mislabeled. It's not because you're lost. It's because you've been hidden. Hidden for a purpose, hidden for protection, hidden until the appointed time when your unveiling would cause ripple effects across every space you touch. You were kept in the shadows, not because you were weak, but because your light was too strong to be seen too soon. If the truth of who you are wasn't shielded, it would have drawn the wrong eyes, the wrong spirits, the wrong attachments. Heaven wrapped you in obscurity because exposure before maturity is sabotage. But now the veil is lifting. The time is coming. The world is starting to notice. They feel the shift, even if they don't have language for it. They sense something is rising, and it's you. You were never meant to be a background character in someone else's story. You're the plot twist, the prophecy, the proof that God still intervenes in human affairs, and the more you step into that truth, the more fear will rise, not in you, but around you. Because your presence demands alignment. It disturbs what's fake. It corrects what's crooked. And it restores what's been broken. This isn't about being liked. It's about being real. It's about being chosen to carry a frequency that forces things to shift. And when people can't control or define you, they fear you. Not because you're dangerous in the worldly sense, but because you carry spiritual authority they can't compete with. They fear your peace. They fear your stillness. They fear the fact that you don't flinch when others panic. You don't react. You discern. You don't fight for a seat at the table. You build your own. So don't shrink. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable. Don't soften your truth to keep the peace. You were born to stir waters. You were born to wake sleeping souls. You were born to change the spiritual climate. And if this word is vibrating in your soul, like this video, subscribe and comment. I carry divine fire to claim your place in this calling. This isn't just content, this is confirmation. You've been chosen, and now it's time to walk like it. You've always felt it, haven't you? That strange electricity in your spirit, that quiet voice deep inside that kept whispering, "You're different, not better, not above, just set apart. There's a fire in you that won't go out, even when life tried to bury it. You're not like the others, and you were never meant to be. You are a chosen one. From the moment you arrived on this earth, your spirit carried a frequency that disrupted everything fake, shallow, and dark. You've walked into places and felt eyes watching you, not because of how you looked, but because of what you carried. Something ancient, something powerful, something that couldn't be explained, only felt. You've been misunderstood, underestimated, and even attacked, not for what you did, but simply for who you are. Because when you're chosen, you don't need to speak for your presence to make an impact. You walk in, and the spiritual atmosphere shifts. People feel you before you even say a word. That's not intimidation. That's anointing, and that's exactly why you're feared. You disturb demons, even the ones hiding in plain sight. Your spirit irritates what others have made peace with. You've walked into rooms that felt heavy, and without even knowing it, you were carrying light into spiritual battlegrounds. You weren't there to blend in. You were there to cleanse, to shake up what's been dormant, to expose what's been pretending. There are people who can't even look you in the eye, not because you've done anything to them, but because their demons recognize your light. You stir what they hoped would stay buried. You provoke conviction where people have grown comfortable in compromise. And in a world that rewards masks and manipulation, authenticity becomes a threat. You become a threat, but don't confuse their fear with your failure. Don't let their discomfort convince you to shrink. The tension you feel is confirmation. Heaven never asked you to be liked. It asked you to be true. True to your calling, true to your gift, true to the fire that was placed in your soul before you ever took your first breath. There's a reason why, even as a child, you could feel things others couldn't. You could sense when something was off. You picked up on people's hidden motives. You knew when someone smiled at you but didn't mean it, and the world told you you're too sensitive. No, you were spiritually awake. You've been decoding energy long before you had the language to explain it. That wasn't weakness, it was discernment. You were never the problem. You were the prophecy. And this is what many don't understand. The chosen carry a vibration that disturbs darkness, not because they're loud, but because they're aligned. You've walked away from chaos not because you were afraid, but because your spirit rejected anything not built on truth. Your peace is a weapon. Your silence is strategic. When others lash out, you observe. When others rush, you wait, because you're not moved by noise. You're guided by the divine. That's terrifying to people who thrive in confusion. You represent clarity. You represent purity. You represent truth. And the truth always unsettles those who benefit from lies. Chosen one, you've probably noticed that you can't fake it like others do. You can't pretend to like what you don't. You can't play along when your spirit is screaming that something's wrong. That's not being difficult, that's being divinely designed. You were built to confront, not conform. And because of that, people fear your presence. They fear your questions. They fear your stillness. Because where others bring chaos, you bring a mirror. And when you show up, what they've hidden comes to the surface. You don't just walk in light, you are light. And light doesn't ask permission to shine, it just does. That's why you feel isolated. That's why people fall away without explanation. That's why your journey has felt so heavy at times. Because being chosen means being set apart. And being set apart means learning to walk alone before you ever lead many. And yet, with all of that pressure, you're still standing. You didn't break, you didn't fold, you didn't lose yourself. Even when the world tried to convince you that you were too much, you didn't run from your gift. You wrestled with it, you cried with it, you protected it. And now, that gift is starting to protect you. Because here's the truth most don't see. You were never designed to be understood by everyone. You were designed to transform atmospheres. That kind of power cannot be managed. It can't be tamed. It can't be packaged or predicted. You don't follow trends because you were born to set them. You don't fit into boxes because you were created to break them. And that's why you're feared. People can't manipulate you. They can't twist your emotions. They can't gaslight you into doubting your intuition. You see too much. You feel too deeply. You know too quickly. It's not paranoia, it's prophetic perception. You're not reacting out of insecurity. You're moving from divine intelligence. You were given spiritual X-ray vision. And no matter how hard they try to hide, you see them. You see the patterns. You see the cycles. You see the hidden agendas behind their words. And that level of clarity is threatening to those who survive by deception. You've become immune to the games, immune to the flattery, immune to the control tactics. They used to be able to manipulate your kindness. Now your kindness is fortified with wisdom. Now your forgiveness has boundaries. Now your love has discernment. And they can't handle that version of you. They miss the version they could fool. But that version died in the fire. And what rose from the ashes was warrior light. There are people who are still trying to figure out how you're breathing after everything you've been through. They watched you lose, break, cry, and still rise. That confuses them because they assumed you were fragile, but they didn't realize you were being forged. Steel doesn't shatter, it sharpens. And now that you've learned how to turn pain into power, you are unstoppable. That's why you can't be bribed with popularity. That's why you can't be seduced by applause, because you've been crushed in silence. You've been refined in obscurity. You've had to stand on promises no one else could see, and you've come out of the wilderness carrying something priceless, clarity. You know who you are, you know who God is, and you know why you've been called, and now chosen. When you're dangerous, not because you're violent, not because you're loud, but because you're clear. Your vision is not for sale. Your identity is not up for debate. You move with conviction. You speak with authority. You walk with purpose. And when someone can't manipulate you, they fear you. When they can't confuse you, they label you. When they can't control you, they try to discredit you. But none of it sticks, because you are walking in something that doesn't come from this world. You are walking in divine fire, so keep moving, keep healing, keep glowing in truth, because you're not just here to survive, you're here to shift generations. You're not just here to succeed, you're here to break chains. And no matter who fears you, misunderstands you, or walks away from you, you were chosen for this exact moment in time. The world doesn't need more copies. It needs originals. And you, chosen one, are the blueprint they never saw coming. Keep walking like it. Keep speaking like it. Keep living like it. Heaven is backing every step you take. And fear is just the echo of your power waking the world up. And still, you rise. Not because everything has been easy, not because you've always felt strong, but because something inside you refused to die. There is a part of you that pain could not touch, a part of you that even betrayal couldn't poison. You've been through fires that should have scorched your faith to ash. You've walked through storms that made others drown in despair. And yet, you're here, stronger, wiser, more awake. That's the kind of strength that makes the enemy tremble. Because you didn't just survive what tried to break you, you were transformed by it. That's what they don't understand. Your story is not one of perfection, it's one of redemption. You were crushed, yes, but what came out of that crushing wasn't bitterness, it was oil. The anointing on your life was born in your suffering. The wisdom in your voice was carved from your silence. The fire in your eyes was lit in the darkness, and that's why they fear you, because you are no longer trying to be accepted. You are walking as someone who knows you were chosen. You didn't just bounce back, you were reborn, and that rebirth shook everything that once held you down. You've stepped into a version of yourself that doesn't need validation. You've stopped asking for permission. You've stopped explaining your boundaries. You've stopped entertaining what drains you. That kind of clarity, that kind of self-respect, it terrifies people who were counting on your confusion. You're no longer lost. You're no longer begging to be seen. You've remembered who you are, and you've returned to your throne. When people thought you would fall apart, you fell into purpose. And now you're dangerous. Not in an aggressive way, not in a worldly sense, but in a spiritual sense, because now you walk in truth. And truth is a sword. It cuts through manipulation. It exposes motives. It dismantles illusions. There's a reason they used to get away with things when you were quiet. But now your silence speaks volumes. Now your discernment sets boundaries. Now your peace disrupts their chaos. You've outgrown the cycles. You've exited the games. And what they fear most is that you no longer need them. That's the shift. That's the elevation. You've detached from drama. You've unplugged from approval. You've reclaimed your energy. You've stopped watering desserts that never bore fruit. And in doing so, you've become whole again. You've become aligned. You've become rooted. And anything not rooted in truth cannot stand. Next to you for long, chosen one, you've always been a truth teller, even when your voice shook, even when it cost you connection, even when no one clapped for it. You spoke from your soul. You challenged the narratives. You called out what others ignored. You named what others danced around. That takes courage. That takes conviction. And yes, that makes you feared, because people can't control someone who's free. You didn't come here to keep the peace. You came to bring clarity. And sometimes clarity feels like conflict to those who benefit from confusion. But don't dim that light. Don't shrink to make others comfortable, because the truth you carry is not just for you. It's for every soul you'll set free by walking in it. You are the voice someone else is praying to hear. You are the courage someone else is waiting to witness. You are the proof that healing is possible, that freedom is real, that authenticity is still alive. You are the blueprint for how to rise with grace and stand with God. And what scares people most? It's not your strength, it's your stillness. It's the way you don't respond to everything. It's the way you've learned to choose peace over pettiness. You don't need to argue. You don't need to defend. You don't need to clap back, because you've tapped into a higher realm, one where your steps are ordered, one where your protection is invisible but undeniable, one where favor speaks louder than defense. You've realized that you don't need to win arguments. You win by being aligned with divine timing. You don't need to prove your worth. Your worth is written in heaven. And when you walk with that kind of assurance, people who rely on chaos, lies, and games feel exposed. That's why they say you're too quiet, too intense, too different, because you've stopped performing. You've stopped proving. You've stopped playing roles that were never meant for you. You're no longer entertaining things that don't nourish your soul. And that level of freedom? It scares those who are still trapped in their masks. But hear me, your authenticity is your armor. Your truth is your covering. Your peace is your power. Keep walking in that. Keep trusting your gut. Keep honoring your spirit, because you're not who you used to be. You've become a fortress of grace, a lighthouse of wisdom, a warrior cloaked in compassion. And the most powerful thing about you, you move in love, but you don't tolerate abuse. You forgive, but you don't forget the lesson. You release, but you remember the wisdom. You show grace, but you don't allow yourself to be manipulated. You've learned how to protect your softness without sacrificing your strength. You are the embodiment of balance, fire and water, soft and unshakable, humble and unmovable. And the more you walk in that balance, the more people around you will either rise to meet it or fall away. Don't mourn their exit. Don't chase what walked away, because your elevation required separation. And anything that couldn't handle your growth was not designed to stay. There is something so sacred about the way you've evolved. Quietly, privately, without the need for spectacle. You didn't need to announce your transformation. You just started living it. And now your very presence speaks louder than your words. People can feel the shift. They sense the glow. They don't know what changed, but they know they can't handle it. That's not rejection. That's spiritual incompatibility. Chosen one, you've learned to stop over-explaining your heart. You've learned that not everyone deserves access. You've learned that some connections were sent to teach, not to stay. And in that knowing, you found a peace that can't be disturbed, a knowing that can't be taken, a rhythm that can't be rushed. You're no longer desperate to be understood because you've finally understood yourself. That's the mark of the chosen. You no longer operate from insecurity. You operate from identity. You don't chase purpose. You embody it. You don't fight for love. You become it. You are no longer seeking approval from the world. You are listening for whispers from the divine. And in that divine rhythm, you are rising. Every day, more whole. Every step, more aligned. Every breath, more. Anchored in truth. Let them fear what they don't understand. Let them question what they can't name. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them walk away. Because none of it can stop what's been ordained. Your path is protected. Your calling is covered. And your soul knows the way. So walk boldly, chosen. One, not in arrogance, but in alignment. Not with ego, but with clarity. You are not here to fit in. You are here to shift. You are not here to entertain comfort. You are here to birth something eternal. And whether they see it now or later, whether they celebrate you or criticize you, it changes nothing. Because what God placed inside you cannot be cancelled, copied, or contained. They may fear you, but they'll never forget you. Because you were never sent to be popular. You were sent to be unforgettable. You don't move like the rest of the world, and that's by divine design. You don't follow the crowds. You don't chase applause. You've never needed a stage to know your worth. Because the chosen aren't validated by volume, they're affirmed in silence. Your journey has never been about popularity. It's been about power. Quiet, reverent, spiritual power, the kind that doesn't demand attention but shifts entire atmospheres simply by existing. You've stopped seeking validation from people who don't even recognize themselves. You've stopped asking for permission to be who you are, and that is the ultimate rebellion in a world addicted to approval. You don't move from insecurity anymore. You move from revelation. You're not concerned with being seen. You're focused on being aligned. Your pace has changed. Your posture has changed. Your discernment has matured. And now your silence speaks louder than your explanations ever could. That stillness you walk in, that's not passivity. That's power under control. That's a lion who doesn't need to roar to prove its strength. You've learned to protect your peace like a sacred altar. You don't give access to everyone anymore, not because you're arrogant, but because your spirit is expensive. And the higher you rise, the more sacred your energy becomes. Everyone can't go with you. Everyone shouldn't. You've realized that the more in tune you are with your purpose, the more intolerant you become of noise. And it's not that you hate people. It's that you've learned how to value silence. Stillness is where you hear God the clearest. Stillness is where your next instructions are downloaded. Stillness is where the spiritual armor is fastened tighter around you. The world may see you as quiet, even detached, but in truth, you are tuned in to a higher frequency. You're not absent, you're just not available for distractions. This makes you even more feared, because you're no longer moved by emotional manipulation. You've stopped reacting. You've stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You've unplugged from drama, detached from chaos, and healed from the need to be liked. You've entered a realm of spiritual clarity that most can't comprehend. You're not just surviving, you're listening, listening to the divine, listening to your spirit, listening to the sound of alignment. And what terrifies others is this: you make moves in silence and they still feel the impact. You're not boastful, you're not flashy, but somehow your presence echoes in places you've never even entered. That's favor. That's divine orchestration. That's what happens when you stop chasing and start allowing. When you stop forcing and start flowing. When you realize that being chosen doesn't mean being loud. It means being set apart. You've become immune to manipulation because you've realized your worth can't be negotiated. And those who used to toy with your emotions can't even find a doorway into your spirit anymore. Your discernment has outgrown their disguise. You see through everything now. You see the energy behind the smile. You hear the intention behind the words. You know who's sent and who's assigned, and you no longer entertain confusion out of guilt. This makes you untouchable to those who feed off instability. Because when you no longer need constant reassurance, you become deeply grounded. And grounded people cannot be shaken by shadows. That's what you are now, unshakable, not because you haven't felt pain, but because your roots run too deep to be uprooted by surface-level storms. You've dug down into your purpose. You've anchored yourself in truth. And the winds of opposition only prune you. They don't move you. Your presence has become a disruption to deception. And in a world that thrives on illusion, truth is feared. You don't try to be liked because your spirit was never called to entertain. It was called to illuminate. You reveal what others hide. You break patterns simply by existing. You say no when others are trained to say yes. You leave when everyone else stays. You speak when silence is safer. You forgive without forgetting. You love without allowing cycles. And that chosen one is revolutionary. You don't just carry peace, you've become it. You don't just speak truth, you embody it. And the more you become who you were created to be, the more the old version of you fades. The version that was afraid, the version that sought validation, the version that tolerated what dishonored you. That version served its purpose. But it cannot go where you're going. And now you walk in purpose so naturally that people assume it's easy. They don't see the nights you cried, the prayers you whispered, the pieces you had to pick up with shaking hands. They don't see how much you've had to unlearn, detach from, and heal through. They only see the glow, but not the fire you walked through to get it. That glow? It's not just from healing, it's from clarity. You know who you are, you know why you're here. You've stopped rushing because you trust divine timing. You've stopped striving because you understand that alignment opens doors that hustle can't touch. You've stopped begging because you've tapped into abundance. And now the world doesn't know what to do with you. You've become a quiet storm, a gentle fire, a silent revolution. You no longer need to shout to be heard, your spirit does. The speaking. You no longer need to explain your boundaries. Your energy enforces them. You no longer need to prove your intentions. Your integrity does that for you. You are no longer moved by fear, shame, or guilt because you've made peace with your past. You've claimed your present, and you're walking boldly into a future that was tailor-made for your calling. You were never meant to be understood by the many. You were meant to be felt by the few, the ones who are also awakening, the ones who recognize your light because they've seen it in themselves, the ones who don't just want inspiration, they want truth. And that's what you carry. Truth that cannot be imitated, a knowing that cannot be explained, a frequency that cannot be faked. This is your time to walk fully in it, not with hesitation, not with apology, but with holy confidence. Because you are not who you were last season. You've evolved, you've awakened, you've emerged. You are not here to fit in. You are here to lead, to transform, to call others higher simply by being who you are. And yes, that will provoke fear, that will stir jealousy, that will expose who was never for you. But don't let that distract you. let it confirm you. Because fruit doesn't lie, and your fruit speaks volumes. Chosen one, it's time. Time to stop playing small. Time to stop second-guessing. Time to stop editing yourself to fit into rooms God never assigned to your destiny. You don't need to be invited to tables where your presence is only tolerated. You were born to build altars, not chase approval. You don't need acceptance when you have assignment. You don't need applause when you have anointing. They may not understand it. They may never admit it, but they feel it. They feel the shift when you enter the space. They feel the weight of your spirit. They feel the truth in your silence. And that's why you're feared. But don't ever forget, being feared is not a curse, it's a clue. A divine indicator that what you carry is disruptive to darkness. You are a living prophecy. You are a walking answer. You are proof that healing is possible, that purpose is real, and that God still raises up those who were overlooked. So walk with reverence, walk with courage, walk like the heavens are watching, because they are. Walk like you've already won, because in the Spirit you have. And let those who misunderstand, mislabel, or mock you fall away. Your destiny doesn't require their understanding, only your obedience. The world will adjust, but you keep rising, you keep glowing, you keep transforming, because the kingdom doesn't need more noise, it needs more chosen ones who move. With truth, lead with love, and walk with God. And that's exactly who you are. You didn't ask to carry the weight you've held. You didn't ask to be misunderstood by the ones you loved the most. You didn't ask to be the one who had to break the cycle, shift the legacy, heal the trauma, and still smile through it all. But somewhere deep inside you knew you were built differently. Wired with a spiritual code that made you see things others ignored, feel things others buried, and walk through fire others ran from. You were sent here with an assignment so profound that it could only be birthed through pressure. That's why your story has never looked like anyone else's, because you are not a copy. You are a living prophecy. Every moment you questioned your path, every tear you cried in silence, every door that slammed in your face wasn't proof of abandonment. It was divine redirection. You were being carved, refined, sharpened for something bigger. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. The setbacks weren't rejection. They were red carpet reroutes for your real purpose. You've never been delayed. You've only been hidden until the appointed time. And now that time is drawing near. There's something holy about your survival. Something sacred about the way you kept believing, even when you had every reason to give up. You've been stretched so far beyond your breaking point, yet you never broke. You adapted. You adjusted. You realigned. That's the strength of the chosen. You may bend, but you never shatter. Your soul was anchored in something eternal, something not built on the applause of people, but the assignment of heaven. That's what sets you apart. You were not designed to perform for the world. You were born to proclaim truth to it. And truth isn't always comfortable. It doesn't always come with fans or followers. Sometimes it comes with loneliness, with silence, with pruning. But even in your most isolated seasons, something inside you refused to go numb. And that is divine resilience. That's the mark of someone who didn't just survive hell. They came out glowing. You are walking evidence that the fire wasn't final, that betrayal wasn't the end, that even in the valley there's a light that never goes out, because you carry a connection to the divine that cannot be severed by a circumstance. Your destiny isn't in man's hands, it's in God's mouth. And what he spoke over you before you were born is louder than any lie the world has tried to plant in your mind. There are forces that know exactly who you are, even when you forget. That's why you felt the resistance. That's why doors that opened for others were locked for you, because your entrance doesn't just change the room, it changes realities. You are not just a person. You are a spiritual shift in human form. The things you carry aren't ordinary. You've been entrusted with revelation, with clarity, with healing that ripples through generations. Every struggle you've faced wasn't just for you, it was shaping your authority. There are people who will be set free just because you chose to heal. There are chains that will fall because you refused to stay silent. There are curses that will break because you walked away when it was easier to stay. You are the tipping point of a legacy that heaven has been waiting on. That's why you were preserved. That's why no attack could take you out. Because God didn't just anoint your hands, He anointed your bloodline. You're not called to just exist. You're called to reign, but not in arrogance, in alignment. Not from ego, but from overflow. You've spent enough time dimming yourself to make others feel comfortable. Enough time explaining your light to people committed to shadows. Now is the season where your fruit will speak louder than your defense. Your results will speak louder than your explanations. Your glow will say what words never could. And don't be surprised when people start acting strange. When those who once celebrated you now move with distance or subtle jealousy. It's not always because they hate you. Sometimes your evolution reminds them of the parts of themselves they've ignored. You're not just growing, you're exposing. Without trying, you are highlighting what they've refused to confront. And when light enters a room that's grown used to darkness, it's not always welcomed with joy. But that's not your burden to carry. Keep walking, keep rising, keep healing, because your obedience is more important than their comfort. You've stopped begging for a seat at tables that weren't built for you. You've stopped shrinking your vision to fit the small minds around you. You've stopped watering relationships that only grew weeds. That's not bitterness, that's maturity. That's knowing that divine connections don't require you to self-destruct. That love is not supposed to be a battlefield where your spirit dies slowly just to keep the peace. You were created for higher, and now higher is calling. It's not about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about honoring the version of you who prayed when no one was listening, who kept the faith when all seemed lost, who kept moving even when it felt like you were dragging yourself through quicksand. That version of you deserves to see what all the pain was for. That version of you deserves to finally rest in the promise. And that promise is coming, slowly, silently, powerfully. It's unfolding behind the scenes, in the places you can't see yet. The right people are being aligned. The right doors are being unlocked. The right moments are being divinely orchestrated, because you don't need luck when you're walking in purpose. You don't need attention when heaven has already seen. You don't need permission when God has already chosen you. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are not too broken. You are right on time. You are the answer to prayers you've never even heard. You are the harvest of seeds your ancestors wept while planting. You are the manifestation of divine dreams. Let them fear what they don't understand. Let them talk. Let them distance themselves. You don't need noise, you need God, and you have Him in every step, in every breath, in every silence. And when the world finally sees you fully, they will realize this wasn't overnight, this wasn't luck, this was warfare, this was surrender, this was growth, and above all, this was God. So rise, chosen one, not just for you, but for every person watching you from the shadows, for every soul wondering if it's still worth it, for every heart that's been bruised but hasn't given up. You are more than a light. You are a lighthouse, a signal that safe harbor still exists, a beacon that God still chooses the broken, the misfit, the misunderstood to carry out the most extraordinary missions. Don't stop now. You've come too far. You've sacrificed too much. You've grown too deep. The world needs what you carry, and heaven has already confirmed it. Keep shining, keep healing, keep becoming, because you haven't seen anything yet. The best isn't coming. The best has already begun. You didn't stumble across this life. You were summoned into it. Your very existence was handwritten by the breath of God, wrapped in divine timing, and released into a world that desperately needed the essence of who you are. You were never born to be ordinary, never meant to live quietly in the shadows of doubt and conformity. You are a divine interruption, a holy disruption to every system, every cycle, and every generational weight that tried to silence your light before it ever had a chance to shine. There's a reason your soul has felt heavy in places others move through easily. There's a reason you've questioned your belonging in rooms that were loud with acceptance but empty of truth. Your discomfort wasn't weakness, it was discernment. That tension you felt deep inside your spirit wasn't resistance, it was revelation. You weren't meant to fit into broken molds. You were meant to break them. The world will try to convince you that being different is a flaw, that your depth is too much, that your sensitivity is weakness, that your silence is strange. But the ones who carry sacred assignments rarely look like the rest. They speak differently, they move differently, they love differently, because they are different. And you, chosen one, are different by design. You were never meant to be liked by the masses. You were called to be followed by the right few, the ones who recognize your frequency because their souls are tuned to the same heavenly rhythm. The ones who don't flinch at your intensity because they've walked through storms and found peace in their own. The ones who see you, not your mistakes, not your past, not your scars, but you, the spiritual force you are, the voice you carry, the legacy you're building. You've spent enough time apologizing for your light, enough time shrinking to make others feel safe, enough time dimming yourself just to be allowed in spaces never built for your calling. That version of you served a purpose, but it is no longer who you are. You've outgrown the cocoon. You've shed the skin of smallness. You've awakened the sleeping lion inside your soul, and now it's time to walk with that holy roar. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are right on time for the calling that was crafted before your first breath. Every delay was divine. Every no was protection. Every wilderness season was a sacred classroom where heaven taught you how to hear in silence, see in the dark, and walk when the ground shook beneath your feet. And now you are prepared, not perfect, but prepared. You've been trained in silence for the stage you didn't see coming. While others built image, you built identity. While others chased platforms, you cultivated purity. While others sought influence, you sought intimacy with the one who called you. And because of that, what you carry cannot be copied. It cannot be bought. It cannot be understood by those who didn't walk through the fire with you. You don't just carry wisdom, you carry weight, spiritual weight that shifts things, that cracks open atmospheres, that commands attention without demanding it. You don't need to shout, you don't need to prove, you just need to be. Be who you are, unapologetically, reverently, boldly. They may never fully understand why your presence causes silence to fall in the room, why their spirit reacts before their mind can explain it, why they feel both drawn to you and shaken by you. That's because your energy doesn't ask for permission. It activates what's dormant in others. And activation is rarely comfortable. But you weren't created to keep people comfortable. You were sent to stir souls. So rise, not in arrogance, but in awareness. Rise in the knowing that you were made for more than survival. Rise in the knowing that your process was preparation. Rise in the knowing that every scar on your heart is a seal of authenticity. You didn't skip steps. You endured. You endured what would have broken many. You sat with the pain, you faced the mirror, you wrestled with your shadow and embraced your light, and now it's your time. Time to stop questioning what's already been confirmed in your spirit. Time to stop explaining your peace to people committed to chaos. Time to stop editing your purpose to match the preferences of people who were never meant to walk with you to the finish line. Time to trust that what God placed inside you is enough. You are more than qualified. You are chosen. Chosen not because you were the loudest, but because you were willing. Not because you were the most impressive, but because you were available. Not because you had it all together, but because you said yes. You said yes to growth. Yes to surrender. Yes to walking away from what was familiar to pursue what was eternal. Chosen one, you've been misunderstood for good reason. You've been isolated for holy cause. You've been through things that don't even make sense to those around you. But God doesn't waste pain. He repurposes it. He folds it into the soil of your destiny, waters it with tears, and grows something so rare that the world won't have language for it. Only awe. That's what you're becoming. A living wonder, a walking contradiction to everything they thought disqualified you. You're the proof that rejection is redirection, that closed doors are invitations to build your own, that the last will be first, that the forgotten will be raised, that the least expected will carry the most powerful anointing. So walk boldly. Let the oil on your life speak louder than the wounds they tried to shame you with. Let your scars be the signature of survival. Let your story be the sermon. You don't have to convince anyone. Your obedience is enough. Your authenticity is enough. Your quiet strength is enough. Because the same God who created galaxies with His voice chose to breathe purpose into your soul. The same hands that carved mountains stitched your name into a heavenly blueprint that cannot be undone. You are not here by accident. You are not here for entertainment. You are here on assignment. You are heaven-sent, earth-placed, spiritually armed, and divinely unstoppable. Let them fear what they do not understand. Let them whisper while you build. Let them question while you walk in clarity. Because when the time comes, and it will, what they feared will be what they admire. What they rejected will be what they respect. And what they doubted will be what they witness. You are not just part of the story. You are the plot twist. You are the one the enemy hoped would stay broken, confused, and hidden. But you didn't. You rose. You healed. You remembered. You reclaimed your place in a world that didn't know what to do with your fire. And now you move with authority, with peace, with grace, with God. So take your place, chosen one. The world has been waiting for what you carry, and heaven has already made room for your arrival.